Hi guys, Chris here with Super Savvy Travelers. Today we're going to talk about driving in Italy because I know it's a little bit of a scary point for a lot of people. But I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that are going to make it a whole lot easier, and you're going to just go, oh my goodness, it's not as hard as I thought. So the first tip and or trick that I'm going to give you is try to avoid driving in the big cities. Rome, Naples, Florence. I wouldn't even rent a car in those places if you can avoid it because the public transport there is so good, and you can get anywhere on the buses and on the metro. It takes a little bit of study, but it's really fun, and I think you're going to enjoy it a lot better not having to negotiate your way through the traffic and whatnot in the big cities. Now, if you have to drive in a big city, for example, Rome, there was one day when Pete and I had to go and deliver a package, and we needed to get there, and it was rush hour traffic in the morning in Rome. And we said, okay, we gave ourselves like 2 hours to get across town, which was smart, do that. And what we did was we got into the traffic, and then we noticed there was like an unspoken, unwritten sort of code of how that works, like customs, that once we started to observe that and go into the flow, like there is a flow there, and it's not readily obvious because the lines on the street don't seem to mean a lot to the drivers there, but there is a flow, and once you understand that flow and see which way it's going and what to do here and there, it's easy because it makes sense. All of it has a logic to it, but it's just a little not readily obvious. So if you look for that, if you have to drive in one of these cities, you look for the flow and flow along with it, it's going to be a lot easier. Now, that said, if you can avoid it, I would. For example, if you're driving down from, say, northern Italy to southern Italy, take the ring roads around the cities. It's going to save you massive heartache and a lot of time and a lot of frustration because you're just going to just pass it right by. And a lot of those cities do have ring roads for that very reason, so I would do that. In southern Italy, we have a lot of two-lane highways, and that's really where we spend most of our time because we drive back and forth between the cities and the villages and things like that, handling our B&Bs. Now, on those two-lane roads, they do go pretty fast, and there is an etiquette that when we didn't know what that was, it was very scary and weird to drive. Oh my God, it just took all our concentration. But my friend Clive told me these little tips, and this was really, really good. So what it is if you're driving and somebody comes up along your butt right there, whether or not they have their lights on and flicking at you, they'll be on your butt. And that means, hey, please squeeze over to the right and let me pass. Now, these are two-lane roads, so when you squeeze, you got to make sure there's a shoulder there, and I wouldn't ever try to go off the asphalt because you're going pretty fast, but squeeze over a little bit, they'll pass you, and we're all good. Now, if you're behind a slow driver, he's going to squeeze over to the right and allow you to pass, and sometimes they do that without you even thinking about it or tailgating them or anything. They're like, yes, we know we're slow, here. And that works out pretty well. So if you know those two tips, that's the key to driving in southern Italy on those little roads there. Very, very helpful. Now, another great tip for driving in Italy, all along the highways and things, they have these auto grills and they have stop points where you can get a coffee, you can use the bathroom, you can get a pretty good meal. We've had some pretty decent food at some of these places. My tip, always, always, always stop and go to the bathroom before you need to, because sometimes you're going to be behind the slow truck or the ape. The apes are those little three-wheel trucks that go up the hills. They normally, on downhill, they go 12 miles an hour. Uphill, more like 6 miles an hour, maybe, a little man in the front. Sometimes the roads are so thin that you can't squeeze by them. So you may be stuck behind the ape, which we have done. And if you don't have to go to the bathroom, it's fine. The scenery there is gorgeous. You can really enjoy it if you're going that slow, but if you have to go to the bathroom, it's misery. I can tell you that from experience. So, the biggest thing in Italy is piano piano. Take it easy, take it gently, give yourself lots of time, don't stress, and you're actually going to have a much nicer time if you don't have any expectation. We're going to be there in 5 hours. Well, you might not be there in 5 hours. You might be there in 7 hours, depending. Many times we are able to plan pretty well, but we have gotten behind the slow truck or the ape, and like I said, if you don't have to go to the bathroom at those times, it's not too bad, but just plan for that and know that that happens. Now, street signs all have different meanings, and so street signs in Italy they can be quite cryptic. Sometimes you look at them, you just can't figure them out. So I was watching a Rick Steves video, which I'm going to put a link to that in the comments, because he goes over a couple of these things. And I'm like, oh God, that's what that means. I'm so glad he put that, because I had no idea. Like, there's a cross. That means on Sundays this happens, or on holidays this happens. Two hammers that are crossed, that means on working days these things happen. So there's all kinds of little symbols and whatnot that happen on these signs, and you're like, I have no idea what that means. You have to know, because if you park in the wrong spot, you're going to get a ticket. And if you do something you're not supposed to do, you're also going to get a ticket. So it pays to pay attention to the street signs. I'll try to put as many links in the details as I can about street signs in Italy, what they mean, and what to do when you see them. Now, another point. Down in southern Italy especially, we have the carabinieri that have stops along the route there. Sometimes you're driving along and all of a sudden they put out, I call it a popsicle stop sign on a stick. They put it out in front of you and they expect you to stop. Please stop. It's not good to drive through those. It's nothing to worry about. Generally, they ask you a couple questions. If you don't speak Italian, you just go like that and they go, okay. And that's actually kind of a good strategy, because then they try not to try not to make it weird and awkward, which is nice. They'll look at your license, and that's usually the end of it. I've never been stopped, but Pete's been stopped a couple times. Sometimes I think if you have a rental car, they might stop you, but it's nothing to worry about. It's routine. They do it all the time. Every time we drive through a certain pass, going down into Calabria, they are there. Not to worry. So I hope you find this helpful for driving in Italy. It can be done. It's not as stressful as it looks. But please write me with any questions that you have, any of your experiences. I'd like to know. Any other tips for our viewers would be really, really great. Sometimes I see you guys in the comments weighing in with ideas and tips and stuff when somebody asks a question. I love that. Thank you so much for that. That's really, really helpful. So, on another note, Pete has indicated to me that he saw something come through his news lines or whatever that said that Italy is looking at shortening the quarantine period from 14 days to 10 days. Now, it may not affect us much. However, it's movement. It's something. And I really, really hope that means that Italy's looking at opening up for those of us in America to come over and do what we need to do. Pete and I will be there in November. Pete is an EU citizen and we do have work there, so that gets us in. We probably have to quarantine, but once we're there, we'll be able to answer all your questions and handle all the requests that we've gotten in through emails and whatnot. So if we owe you something, hang tight, we'll get to it. If you want to send me a reminder, that's great too. I think I've got everything covered, and I hope I've been in communication with all of those who are expecting something. If I haven't, please send me another email. We will leave right after Thanksgiving and be there for at least a month, hopefully longer, so we can really get everything taken care of. And hopefully you'll be able to join us at that time. If not, next summer, for sure, we'll all see you there. And for now, ciao from Aruba, and I'll see you soon. Bye.